The Federal Reserve and the government have been telling us that everything is fine, that we've turned a corner and dodged a recession. Yet two prominent investors, Warren Buffett and Michael Burry, they have bet billions against that notion. What do they know that the rest of us are not seeing? And is there anything that you can do right now to prepare if indeed a massive economic downturn is on the horizon? In this video, we're going to take a look at what these super rich market makers are seeing and predicting and the half-truths that we more common people are being fed. More importantly, I encourage you to stick around until the end as I'll detail some very practical solutions about what you can do, what you can implement today to lessen or eliminate the impact if things do indeed play out the way these investors are preparing for. So let's jump in. Download the Prepper's Recession-Proof Economic Collapse Guide today. I'll post a link in the description and comments section below, or visit cityprepping.com/moneyprep for a free guide to help you start recession-proofing your life and emerging even stronger when the economy recovers. Burry and Buffett. Michael Burry, renowned for being maybe the only person on the planet to accurately predict the 2008 housing crash and the subsequent global recession portrayed in the movie The Big Short, is making headlines again. Now, his private investment firm recently disclosed bearish positions in the S&P 500 and NASDAQ 100 index, investing the equivalent notional value of $739 million in put options against the Invesco QQQ Trust ETF and $886 million against the SPDR S&P 500 ETF. You're going to hear this misreported in the mainstream media. Now, that doesn't mean that he staked $1.6 billion of his own money. After all, the uber rich, they don't use their own money, and that's why they're rich. It means that he invested a large amount of his firm's entire assets under management, around $237.97 million, hoping to unload the options later at a premium to desperate people fleeing the stock market. Now, that's a bet against the U.S. economy, a put option, which could have a maximum payout of a whopping $1.6 billion. Now, put option is essentially a wager on a stock's decline in value, allowing the holder to sell the stock at a predetermined price, even if the market price drops further. Now, an ETF, or exchange-traded fund, is an investment fund that tracks the performance of a broad collection of assets like stocks, bonds, or commodities. It's like not just having one egg, but a basket of eggs. Now, in an apparent move away from Chinese investments, a recent filing revealed that the fund Michael Burry controls also completely sold off its holdings in Chinese e-commerce companies, JD.com, and Alibaba Group Holdings. So, does Michael Burry know something that we don't? And is the Fed afraid to tell us? It's not just Burry who is betting against the U.S. economy. Billionaire investor Warren Buffett, the Oracle of Omaha, is also betting against the economy. In Monday's Securities and Exchange Commission filings, it was revealed that Berkshire Hathaway, led by Warren Buffett, sold nearly $8 billion more in shares than purchased during the second quarter of 2023. Now, while this might not be considered substantial according to his historical patterns and level of accumulated wealth, it remains a significant maneuver given the market's recent upward trend. The Federal Reserve. So what do Buffett and Burry know that we don't and the Fed's not telling us? After all, the Fed says that we've dodged a recession and brighter days are ahead. The numbers the Fed is releasing show that the prices for many things are dropping. Inflation rates are steadily coming down and unemployment is low. But still, as we addressed in our newsletter 2 weeks ago, the cost of things you actually need, things like food, fuel, and housing, they've barely gone down or have actually gone up. And at the very least, they are much higher than they were at this time last year and are expected to climb higher. And while the Fed assures everything is fine and a severe recession is less likely this year, the impact of ongoing inflation persists, affecting consumers. Now, a recent Bureau of Labor Statistics chart reveals rising costs of essential items, things like food, medical, and housing. And at the same time, purchases that can be postponed, such as cars and electronics, they've remained stable or slightly decreasing. The chart, however, does not encompass all daily expenses, with rising gas and utility costs impacting households, leaving little room for non-essential spending amid the inflation reality. Now, the Fed wants us to believe things are fine and improving because That's good for business and politics. Now, this matters because if the U.S. economy indeed does well, the global economy will do well. And I don't know about you, but the Fed is not paying my grocery, my utilities, or gas bill. The global economic outlook isn't any rosier. China is experiencing a massive exodus of foreign investors, not just Buffett and friends. It's also reeling from the flooding disasters wiping out thousands of farmers and forcing the government to dole out flood relief aid. And right before I sat down to film this video, Evergrande, a Chinese developer company, filed for bankruptcy. The war in Ukraine remains a drag on the world economy, and an unusually high number of natural disasters and crop failures are straining economies from India to Africa to South America to Europe. The real deal. Buffett and Burry's concerns revolve around China's economic troubles, U.S.-China tensions, Russia-Ukraine war's impact on global inflation, and signs of a U.S. economic slowdown. Now, additionally, the regional banking crisis we witnessed earlier this year and potential downgrades for big banks are raising caution, despite American consumers showing resilience with a rise in retail sales, indicating ongoing economic growth. So, let's look at the numbers because they don't lie. The reality for the ordinary American is that there is significant evidence that homeowners are tapping into their home equity and even taking hardship distributions from their 401k retirement plans just to make ends meet. That's not a good sign. Retirement savings faced a hit as the investment managing firm Vanguard reported a 20% drop in the average recent retirement account balance from 2021 to 2022, and another, Fidelity Investments, they noted a 30% decrease in 401k and IRA millionaires due to the volatile markets. Now, additionally, millions of Americans must resume paying on student loans suspended when the economy took a nosedive during the pandemic. Now, despite a resilient U.S. economy amidst rising living costs and the Federal Reserve's assertive monetary policy, increasing household debt, especially with credit card balances surpassing $1 trillion for the first time, has analysts cautioning about a potential imminent downturn in consumer spending. Now, if the economy was as robust as the Fed and the current administration would love us to believe, such large numbers of people wouldn't be drawing equity and borrowing off their homes or burning through the money that they've set aside for their future. What you can do today. So for the everyday person just trying to make it, the economic future is not as certain and rosy as the Fed would like you to believe. And it may not be as dark as Buffett and Burry are betting it to become. If it lands in the middle, we may skirt a recession, but you wouldn't know it with your daily spending. Now, that being said, I believe your finances are just one of many of your preps. And I'm not a financial advisor, but there are some practical things that you can do today to begin to prepare against what may be a financially insatiable future. Financial prepping really comes to a few things that you can do practically on an everyday basis. So here are 4 suggestions on how you can begin to prepare for these uncertain financial times ahead. Now, the first one I'm going to list off is health. Your health is at the core of your preps. Your fitness level contributes to your mobility and endurance when things get tough, and it also helps you endure peak stress and to think more clearly. Now, it may seem odd to prioritize your health in a discussion about your finances as a prep, but prioritizing your health and your well-being is everything. And between diet and exercise, you have to shift your thinking. What do? We live in a nation where companies, they make insane profits by capitalizing on people's poor health. I was reading an article this morning about the new drug that a lot of people are taking. I'm probably going to butcher the name, Ozempic. It's for diabetes, but a lot of people are now using it to drop weight, which is a good thing. But the other industries that are designed to help with different obesity issues, heart-related issues, cancer, those companies are going to begin to lose stock as a result. The point is, the healthier you get, the more you can ward off these different health issues that can obviously make life more difficult, even from a financial perspective. And what we'll do is we'll cover this in more future videos, talking about practical things that you can do to begin to prepare to really get your health in order, because I think it's so overlooked, yet so crucial. Now let's go to the second point, which is to invest in yourself. Do you have a hobby that you could turn into a marketable skill? If you do, you could cultivate it. I know some people who have turned hobbies like woodworking or knitting into lucrative side hustles. Do you know how to fix an engine? Someone is willing to pay to trade or barter for that right now. Now, it doesn't just have to be a hobby, but if there's something that you're interested in that you could see that if I invested my time into that, yeah, I could make 40, 50, 100 an hour. I know people locally that are photographers and moms that, their husbands go to work, but they're looking for some extra side income. And I've seen them pick up, gigs where they'll set up sessions for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, charge $300 or $400. And they'll go through obviously and do all the editing, but that's a skill set that they've developed that now brings an income into their house. Over the years, the best thing I've done personally is to push myself to develop new skills and never really get complacent or comfortable with what I think I know, because I've learned that when you stop learning and you get to a place of complacency, others will pass you up and you set yourself up for failure. And I think really the future is going to be, the future will favor those who are willing to be adaptable and willing to learn to change and adapt with the scenarios and situations around them. And look, there's plenty of websites that allow you to develop a new skill. You're on one right now on YouTube. And while I have no affiliation with this other platform called Udemy.com, it's UDEMY.com. It's a very popular platform. I've used it before in the past to learn different programming skill sets when I was building my company. Back in 2007, when I first started that company, when I first started web development, I would use resources like this to get up to speed quickly, because there were things that clients would ask for that I had no idea how to do, so I'd have to go over and learn it very quickly. And I found this. It was an investment that paid for itself many times over. A lot of people are increasingly leaving the typical kind of college model to instead focusing on marketable skills that can make them stand out and that can actually get them into a market where they can use their skills right away. And if your company is looking at downsizing and you took the time to gain new skills relevant in your industry, even using something like, again, here on YouTube, just learn some basic office skills. Again, I'm just using one example. You're less likely, I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but you lessen your chance of getting fired if the company's in a situation where they're having to look at all their employees and say, well, who really stands out? Who's learning versus a person they know is just coming in, just doing the status quo and just punching that time card every day. So let's talk about the next one, which is building and working a plan. Now look, we all aspire to get our finances in order, but until we have a concrete plan we can actually follow, we're just simply dreaming. Implementing discipline really gives true freedom. Let me say that again. Implementing discipline, it gives you true freedom. Yeah, it sucks to get on a budget, but when you have it, you have that peace of mind knowing that if you stick with a plan, you can succeed. It pushes you in those moments to make those hard decisions when you're looking at saying, I want to spend a few extra bucks over here on something that I don't need. No, we're going to stick with a plan. And that's always hard when I have to have those talks when my wife and I sit down like, okay, babe, we got to tighten our belts up. We've got to stick to this budget. But when we do so, it gives both of us security that knowing that, hey, we'll get through a financial rough patch if we just follow the plan. Again, I realize that if you're watching this video, you may say, well, even with a budget, I'm coming up short. Look, I get it. I've been there myself before. When my wife and I first started out in our marriage, we were barely making enough money to pay the bills every month, and it was beyond tight. So what we did is we began to pick up work on the side, and in addition to our primary job, we do our job during the day, and in the evenings we would pick up this skill set. My wife, she was able to do substitute teaching during the day, and she just changed her work hours with our primary job. And the same as I mentioned a second ago, I started doing web development in the evenings and on the weekends, but it developed and flourished into an actual business. And with the extra income, we started paying down our debts and we started saving for the future. But the key here is that we had a clear plan that we followed. That's hopefully the takeaway you get from this. Look, I'm not going to rehash all the points here, but at the beginning of the video, we mentioned our free download guide, which has some very practical things that you can do to begin to implement now, which I would recommend you definitely check out. So let's talk about the last one, which is self-sufficiency. I would encourage you to work on self-sufficiency in as much as you can with your budget. You need to develop the ability to produce your own food and energy and the ability to harvest water. This is why we talk about so much on the channel about just simple gardening at any level that you can do, whether that's container gardening, a windowsill. Start somewhere. I'm currently investing in building up my own grow space on the side of my house, which I've mentioned a few times on the channel. My goal is to increase my food production, and I'm actively working on learning new grow techniques with my garden. There's a lot I've got to figure out, but I'm on that path. I've also got a solar setup, which I installed a few years ago with an off-grid battery system that allows us to power our house if the grid were to go down. It's also it's provided us a lot of return on investment due to the way our power grid is set up here in our area. But I'm going to be expanding it out this summer even more because the cost of everything, especially with our utilities, continues to rise. I've also got a rain harvesting system that I'm going to be expanding out here shortly, and I'll take you on that journey on the channel. And look, I hate to say this out loud, but increasingly in the coming years, as the systems we've relied upon begin to fail or become prohibitively more expensive, having your own methods of producing and harvesting, it's not going to be a nice thing to have, but it may be a requirement. And yes, I realize that the upfront costs, they can be high. I'm not trying to diminish that. But if you've ever gotten serious about gardening, you know just how expensive it can be sometimes when you start out. Getting containers, different irrigation setups, the soil, the different nutrients that you want to add. There's a lot of upfront costs. But as I always remind myself when I'm investing, and that's the way I see it, when I do that every spring or in the fall, I'm gaining new skills that I may need to use to survive with in the future. Let me say that again. I always remind myself that this is a skill I'm developing that may be crucial for survival in the future. I know that sounds dire, but I don't just see it as, let me just try to grow tomatoes or this and that right now. I'm trying to build something that I might have to lean on heavily in the future. Think about that. And look, these are not new ideas that I'm presenting by any means. And I'm not the only one suggesting that you prepare for an economic downturn. Again, I would encourage you to check out the recession-proof guide that we created. I'll post a link in the description and comment section below. It's a free download guide. We created that, which has some of the ideals we outlined here and a lot more. There's also 2 very important videos that we've done in the past that you might want to take time to review. The first one is how to prepare for the collapse of the dollar. I did that video a while back, and I think it's very applicable to this conversation. It has many of the same points and others. And the other video on how to prepare for a recession in 2023. So I think both of these will provide you better insight into what is truly happening with the current economy, and they give you real actionable strategies to prepare your finances and harden yourself off against a potential economic decline. Again, I do want to state that up front. This is not a disclaimer, but I have no idea what the economy is going to do. It could level off, it could go up, it could go down. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do know that the things I'm laying out will put you in a better position, even if that does not happen. And look, I know things feel overwhelming at this time. I get it. I truly do. As I look out to an uncertain future, again, just being honest, I am very concerned for my family, and I've shared this in recent videos. In times like this, I have to set my eyes on an objective and try to set concrete steps to get to that objective. But always remember this, and whenever I find myself kind of straying and not staying on course, I always have to remember that if I just set lofty goals, if I want to be financially stable or I want to do this, but I don't have a plan, it's just a dream. Let me say that again. Remember, a goal without a plan is just a dream. So what goals do you have? And more importantly, what plans are you implementing to get to those goals? And despite what financial woes appear to be brewing on the horizon, you can prepare and you can get your affairs in order to weather the coming storms. If you have any thoughts, any feedback, any comments, feel free to post those below. And as always, stay safe out there.